There's something we hear consistently in AI conversations, but we've noticed no one really names it directly. Leaders will talk about tools and they'll talk about use cases and they might even talk about speed. But underneath all of that, there's a quieter concern. It's not about the technology, it's about what they're afraid of getting wrong. Welcome to episode 118 of Instant Expertise Marketing. I'm Yvette Brown, co-founder of X Promos. I became an entrepreneur at 23 when I started a promotions agency with my then 29-year-old business partner, Shari Nomady. Together, we've built campaigns for global brands, and today we're building decision confidence in the age of AI. And we're doing that by keeping humans accountable, technology understandable, and outcomes measurable.
And I'm Shari Nomady. Yvette and I, we rarely think alike, but we do come to the same conclusions, and that includes this era of AI. And on AI, we are aligned in our quest to help leaders move decisively amid this uncertainty. Most leaders aren't afraid of AI. What they're afraid of is being that case study for getting it wrong, of making a decision that just doesn't age well, of committing to something and then having to defend it while the ground is still shifting. And that is tension.
Yeah, in our previous technology shifts, which we've been through quite a few in our career, there was breathing room. You could experiment quietly. You could pilot something with a small group, and you could refine your thinking before it became visible. There was space between deciding and explaining.
And with AI, that space has collapsed. Outputs are visible immediately. Teams see workflow changes in real time, and expectations form faster than understanding happens. So leaders aren't just deciding, they are deciding in public.
So, what we're kind of seeing is that the fear isn't, what if I choose the wrong tool? It's, what if I choose something and 6 months from now, 90 days from now, I can't stand behind it? What if the model changes? What if the vendor pivots and isn't supporting it anymore? What if the results don't materialize in the way we expected?
And underneath that is something even more personal. What if my team loses confidence in me? What if I look reactive instead of intentional? What if it seems like I chased hype instead of exercising judgment? That's not about AI fluency. That's about leadership credibility.
Yeah, and Sherry, I feel like one thing we don't talk enough about is reversibility,
Hmm.
backtracking, if you
Yeah,
will. You know,
your favorite
Not
thing.
my favorite thing. Not every AI decision is permanent, but we do know with leaders, once it's visible, it feels permanent. Once your team restructures around it, once you announce it, once people adjust their workflows, walking something back can look like instability, even when it's actually responsiveness.
And that perception changes behavior. Some leaders become overly cautious. So they wait, they delay, they overanalyze. And then there's those others that swing in the opposite direction. They rush, hoping that decisiveness will read as confidence. And both are reactions to the exact same pressure.
Yeah, what we see most often is this: leaders will make a decision quietly. They kind of absorb all of that uncertainty alone. They tell themselves they'll explain it once it's clearer. But let's face it, that clarity rarely arrives before visibility does.
And when questions come from the board, from the team, maybe from the peers, the decision hasn't been pressure tested. The assumptions are still private, so the decisions feel fragile, not because they're wrong, but because they were examined so closely and out loud.
Yeah, and usually more information is just not the answer. There's already too much information. What we need is a better conversation earlier. We need to surface assumptions before they calcify. We need to let other people stress test your thinking while there's still room to adapt.
That doesn't eliminate risk, it distributes it. It turns private anxiety into shared judgment, and shared judgment tends to produce stronger decisions. Not perfect ones, but stronger ones. If you don't want to think through these decisions alone, that's precisely why we have built our AI for Business Leadership community, and details are in the show notes.
You see, at some point, every leader has to decide whether they're going to think these decisions through alone, with their executive team, or with peers outside the organization. Now, we're here to tell you none of these options are inherently wrong, but avoiding the choice is.
Because waiting for certainty doesn't remove the pressure, it just delays it. And hoping the urgency eases on its own isn't strategy. That's what we call avoidance. AI isn't just changing what leaders decide, it is changing how exposed those decisions are.
Yeah, and if you feel tension around AI, it may not be about capability, it may be about credibility.
And credibility isn't protected by silence, it is strengthened by visible judgment.
So that's it for today.
Thanks for listening.